Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage your MCs for this inaugural Apex XRPL Developer Summit, Jazz Takhar, Head of Engineering at RippleX, and Amy Huber, Community Programming Lead at Ripple.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the first ever Apex conference for developers on the XRPL ledger. My name is Jazz Takhar, Senior Director of Engineering for RippleX.
Hi everyone, my name is Amy Huber and I'm the Community Lead at Ripple. We are so thrilled to have all of you here today and to be co-hosting the inaugural Apex Summit with the XRP Ledger Foundation and just bringing everyone together from the XRP Ledger community really for the first time.
Over the next 2 days, you're going to be networking, sharing, and learning about all of the wonderful things that are going on the ledger. You'll be hearing about tokenization, NFTs, developer tooling, and other use cases on the XRP ledger.
And I know all of you are very happy to have Jazz and I up here today, although this was intended to be for Matt Hamilton. A lot of you may know him on Twitter as Hammertoe. He is our Chief Developer Advocate, and we know he really wanted to be here, but unfortunately was unable to travel. But he did record a little message for everyone to kick us off, so we'll cue it up to Matt.
Hi, I'm Matt Hamilton, Principal Developer Advocate at RippleX. I wish I could be there in person to join you all, but alas, unable to travel. We have an amazing lineup of speakers over the next 2 days across 2 physical locations, Las Vegas in the US and Tallinn, Estonia, as well as on our virtual event platform. I have been involved in the XRP Ledger community now for nearly 5 years, and it's been amazing to watch the breadth of ideas that have come up across the XRP Ledger developers in that time. 2021 has seen an immense surge in development happening from across the globe. From Sri in India sending XRP via iMessages, to Jay at Spend the Bits in Canada sending Bitcoin via the XRP ledger, to Wietse and team at XRPL Labs in the Netherlands building Sum and Hooks, to Scott at the Australian National University creating Evernode. The XRP ledger really is global, and so is its developer community. We have attendees from 143 countries registered for Apex, and I'm looking forward to finding out more about what everyone here is building. I'm now going to hand over to Jazz and Amy to be your MCs in person in Las Vegas, and I'm going to head on over to the virtual event platform. Have a great time at Apex.
Thank you, Matt. I know you're following along virtually. We really appreciate that. And for those joining us, whether you're virtual or you're in Estonia, we're really excited for the next 2 days. You'll be hearing a keynote from the Reddit co-founder, Alexis Ohanian, and you'll also be hearing from the Interledger Foundation, Forte, and many more. And for those of you joining us virtually, we encourage you to use the chat feature on Hublot and engage with your fellow speakers and attendees. And best part of day one, we will have a really fun after party this evening at Money Baby featuring a special guest. Lastly, we have about 15 sessions today covering some of the most exciting projects and proposals in the ecosystem. We really hope you enjoy it.
Okay, let's kick the program off. Please join me in welcoming Monica Long, the General Manager of RippleX, for her opening remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy and Jazz. Great job kicking off. I'm Monica Long. I'm GM of RippleX at Ripple here. The team at RippleX, we're all about enabling developers like you to build on XRP Ledger in lots of ways. I'm really excited to welcome you to Apex, the inaugural XRP Ledger Developer Summit. And whether you're joining us here in Las Vegas or in Tallinn with the Foundation team, thank you, Foundation, for co-hosting with us, or if you're joining us online, wherever you are in the world, thank you so much. We have an action-packed 2 days to spend with you here. to discuss and celebrate all things XRP Ledger. What binds us together as a community is this shared vision that crypto has catalyzed a revolution in money. It's going from a system of value exchange that's disjointed, antiquated, and unfair to an internet of value that is globally connected, hyper-efficient, and democratic. And we have the shared belief that XRP Ledger is going to play a critical role in that future as a ledger for really efficient value exchange. One of the coolest features of the XRP Ledger, at least in my opinion, is from the very beginning it had a built-in decentralized exchange. I think it was the first of its kind. It was a really powerful proposition, well ahead of its time, but now we're seeing the tokenization really take off. And the ledger enables that, the tokenization of anything and being able to trade and settle those exchanges in just seconds. As tokenization is taking off across the industry, we see things like NFTs really gaining traction. Back in May, we proposed a new standard to add a native NFT object to the ledger, which gives developers now a choice to create their NFTs on a carbon neutral blockchain with transaction fees that are about half a penny. Pretty powerful. The developers are half of the equation for tokenization, and of course the other half is the creators. And this morning we were really excited to announce a $250 million creator fund to provide creators with the financial, technical, and creative support to start their NFT projects on XRP Ledger. Woo! Thank you. We're really looking forward to see what creators do with their projects on the ledger, pushing the envelope in use cases from digital art and collectibles to more interactive experiences and even fractional ownership. To learn more, you can head to ripple.com/creatorfund. Please check it out. All right, so that's the preamble. We're going to get into the meat of the content over the next 2 days here. You're going to hear from the developers, contributors, and node operators who make XRP Ledger what it is. You're going to learn about the latest XRP Ledger functionalities, features, and proposals. And what this is really about is celebrating the projects, developers, and companies all building on XRP Ledger. So all of you, thank you. I'm really pumped for what's in store the next 2 days. Thank you again for joining us and being here, and enjoy.
Thanks so much for that, Monica. Great to hear about the Creator Fund. I know I'm really personally excited to see what comes out of that. And again, as Monica mentioned, if you're interested in learning more or interested in applying, please visit ripple.com/creatorfund. Next up, we'll hear from Wietse. He is the BDFL of XRPL Labs. He'll be joining us virtually from Tallinn, Estonia. Wietse's session will cover the XRP Ledger Foundation's latest developments. Over to you, Wietse.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. From Tallinn, Estonia, as a part of Apex. We are here today with over 20 developers, and all of us have been collaborating and talking and meeting virtually on a daily basis for a long time, building XRP Ledger projects, working on code bases, proof of concepts, and it's so amazing to meet each other here today as part of Apex for the first time in real life. And it really feels like a big XRPL developer family meeting. It's been amazing so far. And we have been working with several people, not only on like the code part, on working together on XRPL code and libraries, but also on getting an XRP Ledger Foundation up and running here in Tallinn, Europe, in Estonia. And a lot of progress has been made already. We have a shared office here in Tallinn where XRPL devs can work together, collaborate. It's a great place for a hub in Europe, and also to provide shared services for the XRPL ecosystem. So developers can do what they do best, and that is develop software and build great things. There's a lot more to tell and to share about what the XRP Ledger Foundation is up to and what it will be doing over the course of the next months and years, but it will all be covered by Bharath tomorrow in his presentation. So the progress that has been made so far with the XRP Ledger Foundation, besides the shared office center and some of shared services, is significant. There were a couple of donations in the form of source code and a domain name, xrpl.org by RippleX, to the foundation. And we're looking forward to working with the RippleX team and the XRPL ecosystem to contribute code and develop more with the software repositories now hosted by the XRP Ledger Foundation. And we're really proud that we have been entrusted to host the source code while the entire ecosystem, together with RippleX, will contribute in the future to these repositories. So, another thing we are going to do more and are already doing with the XRP Ledger Foundation is provide shared services for XRPL devs. And you can think about providing taxonomy and translations for the entire ecosystem to use to provide a consistent user experience whoever is building on the XRPL. We're going to provide more libraries to make it easier for people to work with the XRPL, to gain knowledge and to communicate with each other, with end users, and basically build better tools for more users. We're also really proud that the first developer from the XRPL ecosystem has joined the XRP Ledger Foundation. He will start next month in October, full-time, working on expanding the XRPL ecosystem, working with developers to provide good tools, to provide all the things we need to be effective. And I think it's a great milestone that we now show that there's a place for people, not only as a hobby programmer in the XRPL ecosystem or employed with businesses building on the XRPL, but that there's also a place to work with the foundation, for the foundation, to create a better ecosystem. So there have been a number of inspiring presentations today here in Tallinn, Estonia. I guess we will see a lot more presentations both here in Estonia and in Vegas today and tomorrow. And the things we've seen so far today are absolutely inspiring. We definitely see that the XRPL is a really great layer to build on top of, to use the fast, reliable, enterprise-grade blockchain to build really nice applications. And some of the topics covered here today were enterprise settlement on the XRP Ledger using standards, education, self-regulation in the XRPL ecosystem, transaction analysis, retail payment integrations, and we're going to watch a couple of more presentations, like one about retail payment integrations for offline proof of payments. So really exciting to see what people have been building and are contributing to this space. We're really looking forward to the upcoming presentations, both in Vegas and here in Tallinn, and getting inspired by all the ideas shared and the knowledge shared to build the next generation of applications on top of the XRPL. Really curious to see what it will look like.
Thank you, Wietse. That's great to hear from him in Tallinn. There's a lot of wonderful use cases being built out there, as you just heard from him. And it's great that we've got a thriving community out there. Okay, to change gears a little bit. Now we have a fireside chat with the founder of 776 and the Reddit co-founder, Alexis Ohanian. He will be joined on stage by Monica Long, our general manager of RippleX.
Howdy. Alexis, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. Good to be back at the conference. Feels nice to be getting back out and connecting with folks.
I agree with that. Alexis Ohanian, we know you as Mayor of the Internet, co-founder of Reddit, author, business dad, and now founder of 776, which is an amazingly cool new take on venture capital.
Keep busy.
That's right, keeping busy. You were also an early investor and champion of crypto. How did you get into crypto? What intrigued you?
I was very lucky to be a seed investor in Coinbase in 2012, back when
really early.
Brian's vision was This is Brian Armstrong. Like, let's make it as easy as possible to buy and sell Bitcoin. Very simple premise. And at the time, really the only reason I did the investment was because of Reddit. Because the community on r/Bitcoin was so engaged and so curious and so excited and just so passionate that I thought at a minimum, here was proof. Here was enough sort of minimum viable community that this thing can work. And half of its success is just purely going to come from, is there or are there enough people who believe that it's going to be successful, who are going to contribute and build in order to make it successful. And so along the way, I was in the ETH pre-sale. I've been a part of some pretty amazing projects from pretty early on, and I really finally tipped over maybe in the last year and a half, because this whole time, even with a front row seat to all this, I was still waiting, and even through the crypto winter, waiting to see when this is going to tip over to the mainstream. And the reason of the companies that I've invested in that have been successful across the board, there's always this moment when it goes from a more niche technology that solves real problems to being something that is suddenly applicable to potentially billions of people, like plausibly. And everything intellectually made sense for years. And candidly, I was like, okay, I think this all makes sense to me, but there's still so much to come. There's still so much to come. But really, because of COVID, the acceleration of the adoption of so much in software, but essentially, I mean, blockchain technology is viable. It's working, and it's working at a scale that I don't think there's any going back from. And regardless of what China wants to do, I actually see that as being even more encouragement. It's even a better sign that there's more work to be done here. And in fact, in the United States, we need to be doing more to attract even more blockchain-based companies or crypto companies to get started here and lean into this, because we crossed that Rubicon. It's reached a mainstream interest and accessibility, and people love it. and it actually fucking worked. Like, I don't know, I tweeted recently that it feels right now, Web3 broadly, but when I wake up to crypto Twitter and check my Discords, it feels like this moment 3 or 4 months into Reddit in 2005, when I didn't need to fake a post. So for the first couple months of Reddit, my co-founder and I would just submit posts under different usernames, because we didn't have many users to start with, and we wanted someone who came to the site to see that, okay, there are multiple people submitting here. And a few months in, the site was working enough, we didn't have to submit anything. I would just wake up in the morning and use it like any other user, and I thought, holy shit, this might actually work. And this was a small moment in a little apartment, in the very earliest days of Reddit, but I'm feeling it now, except the scale of it is the entire internet. And the scale and breadth and speed of the holy shit, it's working moment is so much greater. And it feels just like that, except obviously the upside for so many of us who are connected into this, who are building on it, who are curating it, who are using it, all this is so much greater. It's wild. But it all still comes back to those same principles of community, where it's this idea of there is a minimum viable community to help all of this come to fruition, and you have to have your early adopters, you have to have your late adopters, you need to work them through the adoption curve, but God, crypto is here, Web3 it's really here, and I'd say maybe a fourth, I'm really answering your question, Access, now, but a fourth of the companies that I invest in today are crypto companies, and I could easily see that becoming half in another few years. And that's a really big deal. I mean, my job is to do early stage, to find the Coinbases in 2012. And although I'm doing it now in 2021, and so it's exciting. It's an exciting time. It's
no longer its own category. It's just becoming the platform of technology, mobile. Yeah. Everything's going to be Web3.
100. And now, okay. There are some instances where a normal, centralized database is actually the best option. And that's the other thing too, is I'm definitely not a maximalist about any of this. And I think part of the reason I've had the success that I've had is by avoiding that kind of extreme maximalism. I want to be more pragmatic. The best builders I know are pragmatic builders. They want to, like, they know that at the end of the day, the thing that matters is user experience. The thing that matters is solving a real problem for people, building something that people genuinely love. And so the only way you get there is by being as pragmatic as possible, you know, using the best tools available. All that said, I don't think a ledger, I don't think the blockchain is replacing everything, but a hell of a lot of things. And yeah, it's, I think your comparison to mobile is apt, except I think it still understates it, which is wild to consider, right? I mean, mobile phone adoption, smartphone adoption absolutely changed the world in terms of giving everyone 24-hour internet access everywhere they are. But this is bigger, and because it's tied to money, or, well, some sense of value, maybe not traditional fiat, but because it's tied to that, I think we see the acceleration happen even faster. Because now, you're tying it to a thing, you know, mobile phone adoption was great, and, you know, because you had smartphones everywhere, you could have a company like Instacart, was another early investment, where everyone who had a car could now be empowered to, you know, do groceries, or someone who wanted to be a worker could use that smartphone as a, you know, an entire sort of office on them at all times. Had a huge impact, but there's still layers to actually get to feed your family. Because the nature of crypto is in value, it's not like, okay, mobile phones allow all these new platforms to exist, which lets you feed your family because you do this thing, you do that thing, you get an exchange, and here you go. It's like, no. The new technology is effectively a platform for value. And that's a great place to be building, because at the end of the day, people need to feed their families, and it's wild to see what folks are going to be building on top of it.
I like you've called out a few times use cases and solving real problems, providing, like, in great user experience wins the day every time. So always. What are the use cases where you see real product market fit for a blockchain that you're excited about, and what are the companies that are nailing the user experience?
I mean, okay, so I know everyone's talking about profile pics and NFTs right now. I do think look, it's very interesting. It solves a real problem in the sense of, right, bringing art to, you know, bringing all of the advantages of scarcity in art from the digital world, from the physical world over to the digital world, then with all the benefits of virality and scale and efficiency of sale in the digital. So, you know, that's a very great early step. This is still Bronze Age tooling and technology. And we also have to remember, so I backed a company in Lolly specifically as they're like the honey for crypto and Bitcoin in particular, specifically for the on-ramp to get a bunch of people who, you know, the sweet spot demo tend to be like moms in the Midwest who are doing a lot of e-commerce and want to save money, and want to save that money not in dollars but Bitcoin. And it's such a, like, very specific targeted approach for a very basic thing, right? You're just shopping like you always did, except now in your bank account, you've got Bitcoin instead of US, or in your, not your bank account, but in the Lolly account, you've got Bitcoin. That automatically is an easy way to convert someone who normally would not care at all about any of this technology, but because it fits seamlessly into their existing habits of shopping, they're able to accrue the benefits of, you know, checking in a year or two and then seeing like, oh, holy shit, like that account's worth a lot more money than I thought it was, and seeing that growth, and now all of a sudden maybe having their first wallet. And the on-ramp, the user experience, those are the companies that I'm most excited to be investing in over the next few years, because as keyed in as everyone is here, and you can tell, like, this is still a very dude-heavy industry. Crypto is still very male-dominated, and yet the only way we make it to the promised land, the only way we actually get the outcome we want, is when half of the population, especially, this is the half of the population that controls all consumer spending at the end of the day. Like, I mean, that's an exaggeration, but basically, like, household budgets are managed by women. Women outperform men when it comes to social media content creation, curation, consumption, and that bringing half of the world into crypto is very, very important. And not just from a social justice issue, this is from a, like, yo, this is how we win issue. And so that's one very specific application, but I think anyone finding and building that great user experience to start to expand the base of folks who, they don't have to know they're using a blockchain, right? At the end of the day, a great user experience. No one, building Reddit, there was not a single person in 2005 who was like, hey, what database are y'all using? No one ever asked me that question, right? Because it didn't matter. All that mattered was it was a good user experience and the thing worked and it loaded fairly quickly, depending on where you were. And that's the part that matters. And so I think because we've had to spend almost 10 years evangelizing and building the tribes and building the audience, it feels so important that, you know, we have all these like sort of religions and fiefdoms throughout crypto.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, users do not care. I mean, yes, there's always going to be that contingent of early adopters who are going to care, but broadly, when we're talking about mass adoption, no one cares.
Right.
They want a great user experience. That's it.
Yeah, solve a real problem for me,
Yes.
do it the best way possible.
Yes, that's it.
Speaking of community, so you know, this is a developer conference. They're building their own apps and projects. Yeah, what wisdom can you impart for them about community building?
Well, okay, the good news is anyone who's here or watching this already has a leg up over the typical like Fortune 500 exec that I might talk to that asked me the same question right now. Community somehow in the last 2 years, again, I think COVID accelerated it, finally became a thing everyone gave a damn about. And I mean, for 16 years, I was trying to convince people that online community mattered as much or even more than offline as we were building Reddit. I mean, you can roll the tape. I mean, literally 15 years ago, I'm on stages telling people online communities matter as much or more than offline. And we hit this tipping point now where when I'm actually thinking about projects to invest in, companies to invest in, I'm looking first at the community. I'm in the Discord, I'm paying attention, I'm looking at the vibes. This sounds ridiculous, but in the same way, I think every one of us can walk into a club, or let's say I invite you to a house party. Come over to a house party, it's a person you don't know. The instant you open the door, you feel the vibes, right? You get a sense for what this kind of party is. And you have signals, right? You see there's a bunch of people with red Solo cups and a beer pong table, right? I don't even have to, I can just describe words and you already know in your head what type of party it is versus it's wine and cheese, right? You already know the vibes and the energy just by the beverages and consumption methods. And so online communities work the same fucking way, the exact same way. And I think that is a thing that's been lost on, I think for a lot of folks who don't understand this innately, it's lost on them, and maybe we all kind of take this for granted, but I can assure you that same energy of stepping in the Discord, the same energy of you know, checking out the subreddit, the same energy around community online matters. And especially when you're talking about an audience that is short on time, which is increasingly the case for everyone. I mean, developers for sure, but everyone. I mean, there's a great, you know, I don't know, there's a great meme video. We're all 2 seconds away from clicking and watching. And so winning attention online is getting more and more brutal every day. So you come back to why this community building is so important. That is probably the greatest moat any project has, any company has to winning that war for attention. Because the community itself creates content. The community itself creates touch points for connection. The community itself does, I mean, the story of Reddit is not like, hey, I got really good at submitting links and a bunch of people liked my stuff. The story of Reddit was, I submitted enough stuff that other people showed up to submit way better stuff, and then we handed them the tools to build their own communities. That's the only reason, maybe not the only reason, the core reason we beat Dig was because we knew from jump we had to be a platform for communities and give people the chance to build their own subreddits from jump. I kept waiting for the day that Kevin, it's funny because I'm like friends now with Kevin, and he was like, this is Kevin Rose, who was like an arch nemesis as we were building Reddit. Because he was the anti-me at Dig, or I guess I was the anti-him. I was the discount Kevin Rose of Reddit. And it's wild now because we both, speaking of vibes, We both so vibe on everything that's happening in Web3, and I keep trying to find, I need to go on his pod. I keep trying to find ways that we can actually collaborate together.
That'd be cool.
Because he's been spot on and so right about a lot of the stuff. And we just feel like we're seeing these early days of Web 2 all over again, except with an empowered community. And what I mean by that is not just like, okay, yeah, people feel like they're empowered. No. Like, you are rewarded, in the most literal sense, you are rewarded for being early and right in the right communities. Like, if the entire magic of Reddit happened in spite of the fact that no one really was rewarded for being early. Hopefully we can work on that. But like, right, in 2005, there was no, right, the best thing we have right now was an accident, which was I created these awards that live in the profile of Redditors that shows a variety of different things. I modeled it after the GoldenEye awards at the end of multiplayer games, where you'd have these random awards. You'd be like, what the fuck does that mean? Most cowardly. And you'd be like, well, I don't know, we should talk about that. It was great. I grew up playing GoldenEye. And so I created these awards for Reddit because karma scores had gotten too high, and people couldn't feel any sense of accomplishment because there was no way they were gonna reach the top karma posters. So we created these daily awards, and the one I thought the least about was the trophy of how long you were on the site. 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 16-year trophy. And what I missed was that this would become a status symbol within a community now of hundreds of millions of people. Like, it is a flex to show in your profile that you have the 16-year trophy or even the 10-year trophy or any of these large ones, right? Holy shit, like, all of this happened, and yet this was because of pure communal feeling that brought people together, right? And then the flex of like, no, this matters to me because this space is where I laughed or where I wasted time or I got help with my homework or whatever. So Web3 is the early days of Reddit, except an audience that is totally global, totally plugged into social media. I had to convince people that, you know, random people would want to upvote and comment on strangers' links and ideas, right? That is taken for granted now. And that status symbol of being right and early is not just a symbol, it's not just a JPEG, like it actually has meaning and proof and value, and it's transferable, and that unlock is so powerful. And I know it because we managed to build Reddit with just the MVP version of community, where it just felt good, and you had, you know, something to sort of show for it, but not really. And now, with everything that's being built today on Web3, it's gonna lock a lot.
Yeah, I mean, even your example of how you had the conviction to invest in Coinbase so early, you looked at the subreddit for Bitcoin, you saw what the community was there.
That was it.
I also have heard you talk about community is the way, I'm gonna quote you now from what you said on a podcast.
Hopefully I didn't just contradict myself.
No, you're consistent.
Okay.
You said that community is how you add value in the modern world.
Yeah.
And you also talked a lot about there's no shortcut to building a community. You have to put the work in. Like that's what you just pounded the pavement, you were present, you responded, you were just on it. And you mentioned, you know, our time is scarce, and as a developer building a new enterprise or a new project, would you still say you got to prioritize spending the time talking to your people, reaching out?
I mean, 100%. And for the first like 4 years, maybe 5 years of Reddit, if you send an email to contact@reddit.com, you would get a response from me. And I think the average person was just like, oh, cool, like the founder, CEO of the company just responded to me, that's cool. Because our expectations are so low for any contact at email we ever send. Yeah. And we didn't have Discord. We had Reddit, that was the main community building mechanism. And so spending time in the comments, being present and sort of, okay, to go back to the house party analogy, right? If the host of the a great host of a party is there to make sure folks are having a good time, is introducing people who might have, you know, interesting things to talk about, is just creating a good setting, making sure there's always drinks available. Like there's, there are roles and responsibilities in the offline world that again, we just for some reason forget in the online world. that are core. And so yeah, you want to build a community, you're throwing a 24/7 you're throwing a 24/7 house party that anyone could show up to at any time, and you got to make sure the drinks are stocked. You got to make sure folks are having a good time. If you're present there, it gives people a sense of how to act, right? You show up to the house party and I'm doing a cake stand, you're like, cool, he's here, he's doing a cake stand, this is what kind of party it's gonna be. But it gives, it sets a really important precedent, and I think it's an important thing, especially early, for the founders who want to and aspire to build these communities to do that work. And for sure, over time, you'll find people within your community who are even more amazing than you at this, and you promote them into positions. I mean, so in 2006, I hired this dude, Eric Martin, who was one of our most prolific Redditors. He had just harassed me over email for a job for months. And I was just like, okay, this guy really seems to love Reddit. He seems to really get where it's going. I want to hire you because we need help doing community management work. I don't know what the job title is, but like, can I just call you a community manager? And he was like, sure, whatever, man, I'll do whatever it takes. I don't care. Like, let's just make it up as we go. And he's now an exec at Comsor. And I was just retweeting him yesterday. I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, here's a day one community manager at Reddit, the first we ever hired for a role that I was making up. There was no blueprint for that. But all of this stuff now is table stakes. And what's exciting is, again, because this is connected to, I mean, something as empowering as, effectively digital money, like that is going to accelerate adoption in such a big way, because it means rewarding people and giving people access to the thing that helps them feed their families. And that is, that's what will accelerate this in such a big way. So community management's key. If you're building a project, you got to walk the talk. You got to be there at your house party. And yeah, it's not glamorous stuff. It's living in the Discord. It's responding to every comment on Reddit. Maybe it's responding to every feedback email. But that, anyone who says they want community without doing the work is gonna fail. And I don't know, it's just, the good news is it's actually not that hard. Like, it doesn't require a PhD. You're not trying to, it is ostensibly just about showing up and doing it in a good way, but that actually stops most people from actually doing it because they just don't want to do that work. Yeah.
What else? So the folks in the audience are at various stages of their own entrepreneurial journeys, but rewinding back and remembering yourself as an early entrepreneur, first-time entrepreneur, what other advice would you impart?
Man.
Choose your own adventure. You could take that a lot of different directions.
I was very fortunate. So I applied to the first class of Y Combinator, and we actually applied with a different idea. We had a mobile phone. It was in theory, it was going to be a mobile phone food ordering app. Basically, you could skip the line by texting in your order. And this was 2004, 2005, so there were no smartphones. It was going to be SMS based. It was a terrible idea. I mean, at the time, it was going to be a disaster. And thankfully, because there's no, restaurants don't really adopt technology quickly. I had this idea that they could take the order via a fax machine. It was terrible. And thankfully, our lead investors at YC said, we hate your idea. It had a good name too. It was called My Mobile Menu, or And I was really proud of the name. And I was like, this is gonna change the world. And Paul Graham and Jessica Livingston said, no, it's not. We hate your idea, but we like y'all. If you're willing to change it and build something in a browser, it's too early for mobile, build something in a browser that solves your problem every day, and we'll fund you. And that's the blank check, essentially, we got, which we ended up building Reddit. The lesson here that I hope to impart is, now you may not have the market telling you as clearly as we did with an investor that was like, don't do this terrible idea, do this other idea, it's better. But you're gonna get punched in the face a lot as a builder, as an entrepreneur, and it is a weird and lonely road. And so I would want to encourage you to build your networks already with other founders who can empathize with you, with other builders who can empathize with you. Again, it comes back to community, because you're gonna get punched in the face a lot by the market saying like, I don't really want this, or you're you're going to ship something with a ton of bugs and you're going to feel terrible and you're going to have to just pick yourself up and move forward, right? Having that, it seems like a basic thing, but even having that group chat of people who can empathize makes a huge difference. And be willing to adapt. Be willing to shift based on feedback from the market. I really feel for the entrepreneurs who, like in that situation, were we right in a way? Because eventually DoorDash and Order Ahead, all the, like that, yes, there was gonna come a time when you shouldn't have to wait in line for a food order. You could just use your phone. But we would have been toiling on for 5-6 years before the market was ready. And as a founder, you can be right and just still have the wrong timing. And that actually makes a huge, huge difference. And so being receptive to those signals from the market, whether it's an investor who says, no way I'm investing in you, but if you do something else, I will, all the way to even just feedback from users, even, you know, like the early days of a company are brutal but amazing because you have infinite flexibility. You don't have hundreds of people. You don't have all the bureaucracy, right? It's a small team that can move quickly. That is one of your greatest strengths, is being responsive to market needs, being responsive to your users, and just shipping relentlessly while keeping your burn low. Like it's, I mean, to this day, there are companies where I'm very comfortable making a pre-seed, like a super early stage investment where it's just a founder or a founding team and an idea, because as long as they're good stewards of capital and they're good builders, they can work for years until it clicks. And I have countless examples of companies where, I mean, we have founders, it looks like an overnight success, but they go through 4, 5, 6 iterations of things they've shipped that weren't quite right across, you know, maybe they started as a consumer software company and ended as a B2B like SaaS business. Like it happens. And the power of this, the power of software is that you can do so much without building, you don't even open a factory for it. You just open the laptop and that's really a big deal.
Yeah. So yeah, persistence is key, even if the first idea doesn't work. Did you feel at various stages of your entrepreneurial journey, would you feel a tension or confusion between like your strong conviction, but people telling you you're wrong? Like the responsiveness to market feedback, but then also like being anchored by what you believe your vision is and your conviction?
This is tough because it always works out when you're right. And so it's hard to give the general advice because there's definitely, right? Like yes, I mean, for sure, for years, I had lots of smart people say that it just made no sense that people would want to get their news from, or sort of get informed by random people on the internet. That really was the biggest criticism in 2005. And like now today, it's like, it's hard to imagine someone getting informed by something other than social media. It's just become so ubiquitous and so core to our media diets. And so, for better and for worse. But so, I think what I tried to do in those situations was understand where their criticism was coming from and what they had to lose if it did come to fruition, right? Is it not in their best interest because they work at a large media company to not have their platform be as powerful as it is today, or have it be less powerful in 10 years? Like, yeah, there's a good incentive to not want that thing to exist because it's an existential threat to what you do. But then, for the more nuanced stuff, I think you're served well trying to understand the deeper feelings. And I think the same way about, you know, feedback from users. Let's say they're already bought into the big vision, you know, they're using the site, they're using the platform, they're using the technology, and they have some ideas for products, for features, complaints, things that they want. And there's that, geez, it was Steve Jobs? Yeah, it was Steve Jobs, Henry Ford about, you know, if they wanted faster horses, I should have built a car. I wouldn't, if that asked what people wanted, they would have said faster horses. It's a canonical quote for a reason, because at the end of the day, even your biggest advocates don't really know what they want, or maybe they know the problems they're having, they're expressing ideas that they think is best, but it's not necessarily what you need to build. And so whether it's your biggest advocates or your biggest critics, it's a matter of understanding really the psychology behind why they're saying what they're saying. And you know, accepting and taking all feedback, like, and then working to distill what it actually is that you think that they really want, and then also figuring out what aligns with your North Star as a founder for what you really believe is where this can go. And it's probably that subtle dance is what separates the truly great founders and CEOs, because there's no one right answer, and it comes back to just continuing to recalibrate. And then you throw in, you know, in the modern age of building anything now, you're building it with a community. And I was fond of saying, even 15 years ago, that like building Reddit, growing Reddit was as much a business leadership role as it was a sort of governance role. Like, not literally a head of state type position. I didn't mention the mayor of the internet thing, but if you have community baked into your product in such a core way, as a leader, you have to be thinking as much about the business implications of the decisions you're making, the product implications of the decisions you're making, but also the community decisions. And that's something that, for all of history, businesses have been able to basically ignore because they had PR, because they could distance themselves. Like, it just wasn't put into the calculation. From here on out, any business that gets started has to have that factored in. And so that's the gift and the curse of community, which is, yes, it provides tremendous upside, word of mouth, moats, all that good stuff. But it also means you got to do more work now to make sure that you're keeping those stakeholders to some extent content. No one's ever going to be always happy, but like, it's a wild thing. So now I find myself mentoring young CEOs who are in this position where they're not just dealing with the stress of building an organization and trying to have it. I mean, just building a great startup, building a great business is hard. But now they're also realizing they have to basically be their own mayor of a community as well. And those are different, those are important stakeholders, but they're very different. They're not on the payroll. They're not folks who you actually have you have a soft power over. You don't have a hard power because they don't work for you. And again, whole new frontier, because everyone is basically learning how to do this now at the same time. And I mean, there are going to be ups and downs for sure, but we're all figuring it out right now together.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship, it's hard but rewarding.
Oh yeah.
Being a crypto entrepreneur, it has an extra layer of, both big reward and excitement to it, but complication, because the regulatory picture in the US, around the world, it's unclear. So what do you have to say about just being an entrepreneur and evaluating and assuming risk in a space where it's not clear how regulation will take shape?
Okay, well, so none of this is regulatory advice, because I really genuinely have no idea how this stuff goes. And I also, you should talk to a lawyer. But, okay, everything is getting reimagined right now. Major incumbents and very powerful institutions are being challenged. That is already a very, treacherous is too extreme. That's already a very high stakes place to be building an industry, right? But I think we've crossed the point now, at least I'll say in the US, where we've seen the use case. We have enough sort of happy voters who are holding crypto, who are in some way connected now and have something at stake. I do believe this country is still run by voters at the end of the day. As broken as the system is, I do think that's our highest leverage point, which is the more people who are bought in, the more people who have something at stake here with crypto, the better, because they are ultimately going to elect people or remove people from office who have an impact on that. They're going to call up and say, this is a really important part of a bill, you need to keep it or you need to remove it. We've seen this recently. And there's a cynical part of me that is also thinking, all right, well, in a way, a lot of our traditional systems have been DDoSed. So, you know, this distributed denial of service attack, which is not, I'm not saying literally DDoSed. Figuratively, there is so much change happening so quickly that for regulators to try and map out ways to navigate this. I mean, we're still 7, 8 years behind on that front. Like there's still we wake up every morning to a new internet, which is wild, right? Everyone in Web3, like I talk to my buddies about this and I'm like, how are we able, we're still using Bronze Age tools here to keep up with it. It's our Discord chats, it's our group chats, it's our Twitter. There's a new internet every day where something else has shipped, some other interesting project has launched, some other big step forward of something to keep up on, right? That is not normal across industries. And because the implications for what we're building are not just like novelties, but very core to like fintech infrastructure that essentially runs the world, I would not want to be a regulator in this environment, because the nature of regulation and bureaucracy is one that like takes time. Like you have to, if you're doing it well, which I advocate for, I'm not opposed to regulation, but if you're doing it well, you want to be able to take all the information, you want to be able to understand what are the unintended consequences, right? How do we do this in a way that preserves the best parts of it and sort of mitigates the worst, all that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And if just from a cynical point of view, I'm like, well, effectively these systems have been pretty DDoSed by the rate at which there's so much innovation and change that to try and adapt, I don't know how you could even conceivably do that, because right at the end of the day, this is going to require humans sitting down, taking the time to learn and make thoughtful decisions. But at a rate of change where literally every day there is something new to know, that's not slowing down. We're not going to wake up, we're not going to have like a week where the entire internet decides to take a week off and it's like, okay, we're not going to build anything new this week. Nothing to see, everyone gets a vacation. It would be nice, don't get me wrong, it would be fun for us all to take this global Web3 vacation, but at the end of the day, innovation and progress marches on and faster and faster. So I think tread carefully for sure. I think there's a ton of value in being a best-in-class actor, especially in an environment that's still figuring out how it's going to be treated and handled, because you want to be the gold standard. This is really one of the biggest innovations of Coinbase that was so enticing in 2012 was that Brian really wanted to, like, he signed his name on Coinbase. Like, it wasn't going to be some sketchy website where you could buy some Bitcoin. Like, no, this was a website that looked legitimate, that had his name on it. That was a place where they knew people would feel safe transacting for the first time. Or maybe not even the first time, but they could. That, like, in a nutshell, was the pitch. And combine that with the r/Bitcoin community, and I'm sitting here going, okay, well, there's a lot of people willing to go on Mt. Gox and all these other terrible user experiences. This seems plausible, and sure, make it an easier on-ramp. I do think there's still many more opportunities in that way to be that best-in-class actor, to give a chance for people to believe, even if they're, I don't know, on the more regulatory side of things.
Yeah, good advice. Lots of good advice in this session, so thank you.
Sure.
But before we wrap, just would love to hear, I'm sure the whole audience would love to hear, what do you think is ahead in the next year, or you could take a 3-year, 5-year time horizon for Web3? Like, what are you really excited about?
I am now talking to most of the companies that I've invested in about their Web3 strategy. And it's not like, there have been so like, there was a trend in tech 4 or 5 years ago where if you just put AI in your slide presentation, dumb investors would be like, great, it's an AI company, fantastic. But like more sophisticated investors would be like, why the fuck do you have AI in your slide deck? You're a 2-month-old company, you don't have any data. Like, your data set is what matters. Like, you're just putting this in here to distract dumb investors. Now, I do think we're at a point though where it is going to be meaningful for companies that get started here on out to really understand, to actually think through, like, what are the parts of this business that are best served using a traditional database versus not. And it's a simple sort of test and a simple sort of question that I think becomes more and more relevant for more and more companies. And it's a cycle that speeds itself up, because, look at how quickly we went. So Twitter, I think Twitter invented the blue check mark. I mean, invented, but I think they were the first ones to have a verification
right.
check with the blue check, right? It's a meme, so let's give them the credit for it. And credit to Jack, the news recently about NFT support is very interesting because that, in a way, is co-signing something that is going to ultimately usurp the status symbol of a blue check mark. And seeing a platform, and I don't know if I'm a Twitter shareholder. Let's assume I am a Twitter shareholder. It's this disclosure. Like seeing a platform willing to lean into Web3 disruption in such a meaningful way, which is like, no, we invented the fucking status symbol. This is, I mean, not literally Jack saying this, but you could imagine a scenario where an incumbent is like, no, this is our thing. We want to. Leaning into this is powerful. It's subtle, but it's a really powerful concession of the fact that 10 years out, they think it's going to be really valuable for Twitter's existence. And we know that, I know there's a separate project about sort of reinventing themselves on the blockchain anyway, but it's meaningful for the existence of Twitter to make it easy to verify that you've got a Bored Ape. And that's a big fucking deal. And so you start to see these things snowball, and I think very, very, very quickly, I'm now having that conversation with a majority, not just the majority of my companies, but almost all of them in the next few years. And I think for an upstart today, if you're looking at building something, you're basically at a point where you have to at least evaluate, where does this make sense? Like, is the blockchain the solution for the problem we're trying to solve? And can we make an amazing user experience using that technology that we couldn't with, centralized database? And that's the test. It's not just like throw a slide in there that says Web3 and crypto, and it's not, I mean, yes, dumb investors will be impressed by that and say, great, it's another crypto company. I can tell my investors I'm on top of things. But that's how they talk. But you're going to see this rapid escalation. Like I said, and you can look, I mean, I was 2014, I am on Rogan. I mean, he's asked me questions about fucking Dogecoin and like advocating for Coinbase and Bitcoin, but cautiously. And I mean, that's how I genuinely felt, right? And I've been a cautious champion of crypto for almost a decade now. And it tipped, like I said, in the last couple of years. And so of all the places to be building, of all the technologies to be building on, this is the most exciting. And so my overarching advice is like, I've never been very good at predicting specific products. If you look at all the successful investments I've made, only once was I even close to knowing it when the founders showed up and said, hey, here's Patreon. And I was like, oh yeah, this Kickstarter sucks. Like, I've got friends who are webcomic artists. They should make a living like with recurring revenue. And that Patreon was the only exception. 99% of the time, it's founders who are living and breathing some problem who show up and say, okay, here's this new technology that's emerged. We know how to solve this problem that we know better than anyone else, and let's build. And that's been the story for the last 10 years. It's going to be for the next 10, except not only can I not predict it, I think the rate at which it happens will be so much faster. Because, I mean, like I said, it's when we're talking about technology that ultimately helps people feed their families, or pay their bills, that moves very quickly. You've got, I mean, I don't know what the latest Axie Infinity numbers are for, I mean, yeah, I guess you can go check. But like, to reimagine gaming through play to earn as a model that now, I mean, that Candy Crush, why is anyone, there's gonna be some blockchain-based Candy Crush that it no longer passes a basic intelligence test for why you would want to spend your time playing a casual game and not earn money from it. And that's, I mean, again, this is Bronze Age. This is the most basic implementation of it, but you're talking about, a massive, massive industry of people who are spending time either being harvested for ad dollars, which is bullshit, or spending money on digital goods they don't actually own, which is also kind of bullshit, having spent a lot of money on digital goods I don't actually own, because I've been a gamer since I was a kid. Well, I mean, that's first days of it. And it's gonna come quick, and it's gonna be exhilarating to watch. I mean, the next 5 years, we will see tremendous innovation. And I keep trying to think of the thing that's gonna stop it, and all I can think about are things that will accelerate it. Because, I mean, even the the reaction now recently in China,
Yeah.
right? Massive population, massive tech investments that are now basically going to go to zero, or we'll see how it all turns out, but whatever, probably, right? It's it's just catalyzing other communities around the world to pick up the slack and actually double down on it. And I think ultimately becomes a wedge for us in the West to say, no, you know what? The principles here in crypto, and this, I'm wishful thinking here, but the principles aligned here in crypto actually align with our sort of, you know, more democratic views of how the world should be. And that's the perfect storm of galvanizing, you know, a global community of developers to actually build a new internet. And so I don't know, I'm going to certainly try to do my part with the folks I do know in DC to try to keep nudging things along, but that's, I think we have some amazing innovation ahead of us, and I hope it all happens here.
Absolutely. I mean,
Europe's awesome too. Shout out Estonia.
Estonia, yeah.
Building Skype. I mean, the OGs of the global internet. And I think, I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention the fact that another part of Web3 that I find so enticing is that I think we all instinctively know that great ideas can come from anywhere, but opportunity is not, you know, universal, as the saying goes. And even as a capital allocator, as an investor, I know there's tons of companies and markets that I never even see or think about because I have my own blind spots. I think we're going to see so much innovation, and no one will care the geography in which it is based. It will receive funding, ideas will grow to scale, and we'll never know that there was one developer sitting in Mumbai and another developer in Seoul and another developer in New York City. Like, it's that, there's a part of it too that's very exciting that I can't unsee from my own Reddit experience, which was actually, this is not a public thing. I'm not blowing up anyone's spot, but so one of our most prolific Redditors, gosh, maybe 5-7 years in, I would love to know more about you. Like, I try to be pretty respectful of people because they're anonymous, right? I don't want to pry in their lives. They got their pseudonym. And he actually, he told me, he was like, oh, I live in Bangladesh. And I'm like, really? And for, 5-6 years, I just knew them as a really funny, really creative, like just thoughtful, entertaining person, just an entity, right? Yeah. And I didn't have all these other biases. I wasn't aware of all these other biases because I just knew it as, a username. And I don't know, I see these examples time and time again with way lower stakes, right? The incentives to contribute on Reddit were purely based on community and a karma score. And yet amazing things happened. People showed up and communed and bonded and fell in love and made friends and told jokes and like amazing stuff, right? We are seeing that again now with Web3, except the stakes get to be so much higher and the rewards are so much greater and the incentives and the creation opportunity is so much bigger. I mean, I'm very excited about what's to come, and I know those great ideas are going to come from everywhere, and I'm excited by it. I'm a glutton for great ideas, and I want to see them thrive, and I want them, as many of them as I can get. So great. so DM me. I'm on the Twitters, and we'll jam.
So
thank you for having me.
This is a great time to be building in this space.
Yes.
Tons of opportunity ahead. Yeah. Well, thank you again, Alexis. This is phenomenal.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, everybody.
Woo. All right.
Great job, you guys. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, nice to meet you. Thank you again, Alexis and Monica. That was awesome. I think there was a lot of really poignant takeaways there, and I'd love the discussion around community. That's the whole reason that we're here at Apex, so I think that's a great theme to just keep top of mind throughout the next 2 days. From now, we're going to take a quick 30-minute break to network, chat, grab some more coffee. Here in Vegas, if you're virtually, feel free to do the same. Estonia, maybe it's time for happy hour. Either way, we will be back here at 10:45. See y'all soon.